Mark Thompson had always dreamed of living near water. Not a noisy beach or a busy river, he wanted a quiet lake, something calm, something peaceful. So when he finally bought a house with a backyard that opened straight toward a beautiful blue lake, he felt like he had won a small lottery of life. It wasn't a big house, not a fancy one, but it had something he valued more than anything else: silence. A soft breeze, the gentle sound of water touching the shore, birds calling from far away, that was enough to make him feel at home. After years of city noise, he wanted a fresh start. He wanted mornings with sunlight on the lake. He wanted evenings where he could sit outside and think about nothing. No bosses, no crowds, no stress. Just peace. But peace, he would soon learn, was not the main thing this neighborhood was known for. On his very first day, Mark stood at the back of his property, admiring the view. The lake stretched out like a silver mirror, reflecting clouds that moved slowly across the sky. A couple of ducks floated near the reeds. A small wooden dock from the previous owner sat at the edge of the water, a little old but still usable. "This is perfect," Mark whispered to himself. As he unpacked his things, a friendly man from next door walked over. He was tall, around 50, with kind eyes and a baseball cap that looked older than the house itself. "Hey there, you must be the new guy," the man said with a smile. "Name's Tom." Mark shook his hand. "Yeah, I just moved in. I'm Mark." "Welcome to Maple Lake Community," Tom said, leaning slightly on the fence. "Great place to live, mostly." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Mostly?" Tom chuckled softly and lowered his voice. "Well, you'll find out soon enough. Just watch out for the HOA. Especially Karen." "Karen?" Mark repeated, confused. "You'll know her when you see her," Tom said. "Trust me." After talking a little more about garbage pickup days and the best local pizza place, Tom headed home. Mark didn't think too much about the warning. How bad could an HOA be? He had heard stories online, fines for small things, some rule about mailbox colors, but he assumed this neighborhood was different. It looked peaceful. Calm. Normal. But then, only an hour later, he met her. Mark was carrying a box of kitchen items inside when he heard loud footsteps on the driveway. A woman, maybe in her late 40s, walked toward him like she was marching into battle. Her hair was pulled tight into a bun, her sunglasses were oversized, and she held a thick clipboard like it was a weapon. "You must be the new resident," she said without even greeting him. Her tone wasn't friendly, it was sharp, like she was already annoyed. "Yes," Mark replied slowly. "I'm Mark." "I'm Karen," she announced, as if that explained everything. "President of the Maple Lake HOA. I handle all neighborhood matters, including lake regulations." "Lake regulations?" Mark repeated. He didn't know lakes came with those. Karen lifted her clipboard and flipped through the pages quickly, as if she needed to remind herself what rule she wanted to attack him with first. "Yes. This lake is under HOA protection. There are strict rules you must follow if you want to use it." Mark blinked. "Oh. I didn't know the HOA owned the lake." Karen paused for half a second, just enough for Mark to notice something strange in her expression. It wasn't confidence. It was discomfort. But she hid it quickly. "Yes, well, we manage it," she said, clearing her throat. "Anyway, first thing, your dock needs inspection. It may not meet HOA standards." Mark glanced at the dock. "It's been there for years." "That doesn't matter," Karen snapped. "Second, no boats on the lake without HOA approval. Kayaks, canoes, paddleboards, all must be registered." Mark looked at her, surprised. "I thought this lake was public." Karen crossed her arms tightly. "In this neighborhood, we treat it as private. Follow the rules, and we won't have any problems." She adjusted her sunglasses, gave him a long warning look, and walked away without saying goodbye. Mark stood there, confused. This was not the peaceful beginning he imagined. Later that evening, he met another neighbor while carrying a box toward the garage. A woman, around 30, holding a cup of coffee, smiled at him. "You met Karen," didn't you?" Mark laughed nervously. "Is it that obvious?" "Oh yeah," she said. Her car smells like rules and anger. "I'm Lisa. I live 2 houses down." Mark appreciated her sense of humor. "So, is she always like that?" "Always," Lisa replied. "She thinks she owns the whole lake. But don't worry. Not everyone listens to her. Some of us just avoid her to stay sane." "Tom said something similar," Mark said. Lisa nodded. "If you want peace, just keep your head down around her. She loves control." But Mark wasn't sure he liked that idea. He didn't move here to be bossed around by a stranger with a clipboard. That night, he sat at his small backyard table, looking at the moon reflecting softly on the lake. He listened to crickets. The lake looked calm, peaceful again, but now he felt a small irritation inside him. Why did Karen act like the lake belonged to her? Why did she talk like she had full authority? The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Something didn't add up. He decided he would check the property documents the next day. Just to be sure. Because if Karen was lying or pretending, the whole situation might be bigger than a few lake rules. And Mark was not the kind of person who let lies control his life. This peaceful lake might not stay peaceful for long. Mark woke up the next morning with the sound of ducks quacking outside his window. For a moment, everything felt normal. Peaceful. The kind of morning he imagined when he decided to move here. But the memory of Karen's sharp voice from yesterday came back like an unwanted alarm clock. As he brewed his coffee, he looked out the window at the lake. The water was calm, shining under the early sunlight. Small ripples moved across the surface as if the lake itself was stretching after a long sleep. It looked so open, so free. Nothing about it felt private or controlled. Yet Karen spoke like she was the queen of the water. After breakfast, Mark went to his home office and pulled out the folder with all his home documents. He flipped through the pages and quickly found the one he was looking for, the property map. He traced his finger around the border of his land, then to the back where it touched the lake. And there, in bold letters, it said exactly what he expected. Lake access, public water. Shared, not owned by HOA. A slow smile spread across his face. So Karen was bluffing, he whispered. But then he heard something. Footsteps. Fast, loud, coming straight toward his backyard. He sighed. There was only one person in the world who walked like that. Karen. He stepped outside, coffee in hand. Sure enough, Karen stood at the edge of his yard, holding her clipboard like she was about to issue a ticket. "Good morning," Mark said, keeping his voice neutral. Karen didn't smile. "Not a good morning. I'm here because I need to talk to you about violations." Mark raised one eyebrow. "Violations? I just moved in." "All the more reason to teach you the rules," she replied quickly. "I saw your kayak in the backyard. It's the wrong color." Mark blinked. "The wrong color?" "It's bright red," she said. "We prefer natural colors. Browns, greens, beige. Nothing that disrupts the lake aesthetic. So you must repaint it." Mark almost laughed. "It's a kayak, not a wall." Karen didn't laugh. "Not even close." "Second violation," she said, flipping her papers dramatically. "Your dock chair is too close to the water." Mark looked at the old wooden chair sitting near the dock. "It's a chair, Karen. It must be 14 inches from the waterline," she declared. "Not 10. I measured." Mark looked at her in disbelief. "You measured my chair?" "I measure everything," she said proudly. Then she stepped forward, lowering her voice like she was sharing a dark secret. "And most importantly, you must get HOA approval before touching the lake. Fishing, swimming, sitting near the water, everything requires a permit." Mark took a slow, deep breath. He had expected more nonsense, but this? This was another level. Finally, he decided to push back. Karen, he said calmly, the lake is public property. I checked the documents. For the first time, Karen's face twitched. A tiny crack of panic appeared behind her sunglasses. The HOA manages the lake, she said quickly. That's not what the documents say, Mark replied. The HOA has no ownership over the water. Karen's jaw tightened. She stepped closer, almost too close. You will follow the rules, she whispered, her voice shaking slightly, because that is how this neighborhood stays orderly. Mark didn't flinch. I'll follow real rules. Not fake ones. For a moment, Karen didn't speak. Her lips pressed together like she was holding back a storm. Then she spun around sharply and walked away. Mark thought that would be the end of it. He was wrong. That afternoon, things got even stranger. Mark was adjusting the steps of the old dock when a loud whistle blasted behind him. It was Karen again, but this time she had backup 2 other HOA members, both holding clipboards, both looking like they didn't really want to be there. Karen stepped forward. We have received complaints. From who? Mark asked. From the community, Karen said. She didn't mention that the community was probably just herself. One of the other HOA members, an older man named Greg, looked uncomfortable. Karen, maybe. Greg, she snapped, I'll handle this. She pointed at the water. We saw you creating waves with your feet. Mark stared at her. Waves? From standing? Disturbing the water is not allowed without permission, she said. Mark laughed before he could stop himself. Are you listening to yourself? Karen glared. Do you want a warning or a fine? A fine? For what? For being disrespectful to the HOA. Greg cleared his throat. Actually, Karen, we can't fine people for. Greg, she snapped again. But this time, Mark saw something important. Greg looked tired. The other HOA member, a woman named Sandra, avoided eye contact completely. They didn't want to be here. They didn't want this drama. Karen was pushing too far. And they knew it. After a long minute of silence, Karen sighed loudly, frustrated. This is your last warning, she declared. You follow the rules, or you will regret it. Then she marched off, leaving Greg and Sandra behind. Greg gave Mark a small, apologetic shrug. She means well, but she takes this job too seriously. Too seriously? Mark repeated. She acts like she owns the lake. Greg didn't deny it. He simply nodded and followed Karen. That night, as Mark sat on his porch, he felt a strange mix of amusement and annoyance. He moved here for peace, and instead he found a self-appointed lake dictator. But one thing was clear now. Karen was lying. Her rules were fake. And she hated that Mark knew the truth. The lake was public. It always had been. And if she thought he would stay quiet, she didn't know him at all. This was only the beginning. The next morning, the lake looked peaceful, but the neighborhood did not. Mark walked outside with a cup of coffee, expecting a calm start to the day. Instead, he noticed something unusual, people whispering in small groups near the street. Neighbors glanced at him, then quickly looked away, as if they had been warned not to talk to him. Something felt off. When he reached his mailbox, he found a bright yellow paper taped to it. The bold letters said, Notice of violations, immediate action required. HOA Enforcement Division. Mark frowned. He peeled it off and read the list. Unauthorized dock use. Unapproved water disturbance. Non-compliant kayak color. Failure to register as a lake user. Disrespecting HOA authority. Mark sighed loudly. Disrespecting HOA authority? That's not even a real rule. Behind him, someone cleared their throat. He turned around and saw Greg, the older HOA member from yesterday. Greg looked uncomfortable, like he had been forced to be there. Mark, can we talk? Greg asked quietly. Mark folded the paper. Is this your idea? Greg shook his head fast. No. Karen wrote all of it. She's upset. Very upset. Because I told her the truth? Mark said. Greg lowered his voice even more. You embarrassed her. And Karen doesn't handle embarrassment well. She likes control. When she feels she's losing it, she gets intense. Mark raised an eyebrow. Intense? She gave me a ticket for touching water with my feet. That was her calm version, Greg muttered. Before Mark could reply, a loud engine sound filled the street. A group of cars rolled in, cars with HOA stickers on their windshields. One by one they parked around Mark's house, forming a half-circle like a strange neighborhood military team. Karen stepped out of the first car. Clipboard in hand. Sunglasses on. Power mode activated. Mark Thompson, she called, walking toward him with quick, sharp steps. We need to discuss your behavior. Mark took a slow breath. Karen, we've already talked. No, she said firmly, I talked. You disrespected me. Mark folded his arms. Because you made up rules. Karen's jaw twitched. The HOA makes rules. I enforce them. About the lake? Mark asked. The lake you don't own? Karen stopped walking. She froze. And for the first time, she didn't answer immediately. That hesitation told Mark everything. She knew she was wrong. She just didn't know how to admit it. Behind her, the other HOA members, Greg, Sandra, and a few others, stood in a nervous line. Some avoided eye contact. Some whispered quietly. But Karen snapped out of her pause and marched forward again. You are causing disruption, she yelled. You are refusing to follow lake management protocol. Mark held up the papers from his home documents. The lake is public. You cannot make rules for public water. Karen snatched the papers from his hand before he could react. She skimmed the page, her face rapidly changing colors, pink, red, then almost purple. You misunderstood this, she said, her voice tight. No. I read it clearly, Mark replied. You don't understand legal terms, Karen snapped. Greg quietly stepped forward. Karen, he's right. The lake isn't HOA property. Karen turned to him slowly. Very slowly. Excuse me? Greg swallowed. It's in the charter. The original charter. The HOA only manages the land around the lake, not the water. Karen stared at him like he had betrayed a sacred oath. That charter is old, she said sharply. It's outdated. We've always treated the lake as ours. But legally, it isn't, Greg replied. Sandra nodded weakly behind him. It's true, Karen. A long silence followed. Birds chirped. The lake made soft sounds. Everyone waited for Karen's reaction. And then, she snapped. Her voice exploded. I don't care what paper says, she shouted. I have run this lake for 12 years. I make the rules. I keep the order. And I will not let one new guy ruin everything. Neighbors peeked out from their windows. Others stepped onto their porches. Karen didn't care. She stepped closer to Mark, pointing her finger at his chest. You think you know the rules? You think you can come in here and challenge me? You are wrong. I will fine you every single day if I have to. I will shut down your dock. I will. That's enough, Greg said suddenly. Everyone stared at him. Greg's voice had changed. It was stronger. Tired, but strong. You can't fine him for things that aren't real violations, he continued. We can't keep pretending we own something we actually don't. Karen turned toward Greg like she might explode again. You're supposed to support me. Greg shook his head. We're supposed to follow the truth. Sandra finally stepped forward too. Karen, this has gone too far." For the first time, Karen looked genuinely shocked. Her own team was turning against her. "You're all ungrateful," she whispered angrily. "Ungrateful and blind." She pointed at Mark again, like she wanted him to feel the blame. "This is your fault," she hissed. "You brought chaos to this neighborhood." Mark sighed. "Karen, you brought chaos when you lied about the lake." Karen didn't answer. She spun around, stormed to her car, and slammed the door. Her tires screeched as she drove away. The street fell silent. Greg rubbed his forehead. "I'm sorry, Mark. She's not taking this well." Mark nodded. "I noticed." Sandra stepped closer. "Be careful," she whispered. "When Karen feels she's losing power, she doesn't calm down. She gets desperate." Mark looked at the lake again. Calm water. Quiet morning. But he felt the opposite inside. Karen had snapped. And this fight was far from over. The next few days in the neighborhood felt strange. It wasn't loud or chaotic, no arguments, no yelling. It was the silence that felt dangerous. The kind of silence that comes right before a storm. Every morning, Mark noticed something odd: cars slowing down in front of his house, neighbors walking past his property only to whisper behind their hands, people watching him from a distance as if he had become the most interesting or most feared person in the community. Some avoided eye contact. Some looked apologetic. Some looked confused. But one thing was clear. Karen had said something. She had started a rumor war. Mark didn't care. He wasn't someone who backed down because of gossip. What bothered him was something else, something much bigger. Karen had no intention of stopping. Every day, new strange things happened. One morning, someone placed a fake HOA citation on his dock stating, "Unauthorized sitting near water, $75 fine." Another day, he found a sign stuck into the ground. "Residents must respect HOA water policies." And one night, someone knocked on his door, left a note, and ran away. It said, "Karen is planning something big. Be ready." Mark read the note 3 times. Who wrote it? Why warn him? What was Karen planning? He realized that waiting for her next move was pointless. She wouldn't stop until she got back control. But she didn't know that Mark had been thinking too. And he finally had an idea. A big idea. A genius idea. That afternoon, Mark drove to the county office with his documents. The building was quiet, with old brown carpets and posters about water safety hanging on the walls. He walked to the clerk at the front desk, a woman with glasses and a calm voice. "How can I help you?" she asked. "I have a question about lake property," Mark said. "Specifically about building structures on public water." She raised an eyebrow. "What kind of structure?" "A dock," Mark replied. The woman typed on her computer, looked up the location, checked the lake map, and then nodded. "Yes, the lake is public access. Anyone who owns land touching the water can apply to build a personal or shared dock as long as it follows size and safety codes." "So," Mark asked slowly, "I can build one?" She smiled. "If you follow the guidelines, yes." Mark felt a spark inside him. A spark that would turn into something bigger. "Do I need HOA approval?" he asked. The woman looked confused. "For a public lake?" "No. The HOA has no authority over water structures." Mark had to hide a smile. This was exactly what he needed. "Thank you," he said, taking the forms. He left the building with a plan, a bold one. Karen wanted to control the lake? Fine. He would build something on the lake she could never control. A dock. A legal, approved, beautiful dock. And when Karen learned she had no power to stop it, the look on her face would be priceless. Back home, Mark didn't waste a second. He printed out the guidelines, measured the shoreline, sketched a design, and made a list of supplies. As he worked, Tom, the friendly neighbor he met on the first day, walked over. "What's all this?" Tom asked, looking at the papers. "I'm building a dock," Mark said casually. Tom's eyes widened. "A dock?" Mark nodded. "A legal one. Karen can't stop it." Tom laughed so hard he had to hold his stomach. "Oh man, this is going to drive her crazy." "I know," Mark said. "That's not why I'm doing it, but it's a nice bonus." Tom leaned closer. "Well, maybe partly why you're doing it." Mark smiled. "Maybe." Tom slapped him on the back. "Let me know if you need help. This neighborhood could use someone who isn't afraid of her." "I'm not afraid," Mark said. "I'm tired of lies." Tom gave a proud nod and left. 2 days later, the materials arrived. Large boards, support beams, bolts, rope, everything he needed. The delivery truck pulled up right outside his house. But of course, someone else arrived too. Karen. She appeared like a storm cloud, walking fast, sunglasses flashing with anger. "What is going on here?" she shouted before the truck driver even finished unloading. Mark stayed calm. "Building supplies." "For what?" "A dock." Karen froze. "A dock," she repeated slowly, as if the word personally insulted her. "Yes," Mark said. "A legal dock. I already confirmed everything with the county." "That's not possible," she snapped. "You need HOA approval." "No," Mark said simply. "I don't." Her face tightened. "We control the lake." Mark pulled out the county document from his pocket and handed it to her. Karen read it. Then read it again. Her hands shook slightly. This is ridiculous," she said. "You can't just build whatever you want." "It's not whatever I want," Mark replied. "It's exactly what I'm allowed to build." She pointed a trembling finger at him. "If you do this, you will regret it." But her threats didn't hit the way they used to. Not anymore. She sounded less like a leader, and more like someone afraid of losing everything. Mark looked at her calmly. "I'm building it, Karen." "And oh," she shouted. But the truck driver interrupted, lifting a heavy beam. "Where do you want this, sir?" Mark smiled. "Right by the lake." Karen stood frozen, helpless, watching as the materials were carried to the shoreline. For the first time, Mark saw it, the truth behind her anger. She wasn't furious because of a dock. She was furious because she couldn't stop it. This was the moment she lost control. And Mark? He was just getting started. The sound of hammering became the new background music of the neighborhood. Every morning, just after sunrise, Mark walked down to the lake with his toolbox, ready to continue building the dock. The water was calm, cool mist drifting above it. Birds watched curiously from the trees, almost as if they were cheering him on. For the first time since he moved in, the lake felt like his place, not a battlefield, not a territory under someone else's control. It felt like home. But of course, not everyone liked that. Especially not Karen. From the first plank to the last nail, Karen appeared every single day. Sometimes she stood far away, pretending she was inspecting the neighborhood. Other times she came close, pacing with her hands on her hips like she wanted to snatch the tools out of his hands. She tried everything. On day 1, she shouted, "You don't have permission." On day 2, "You're ruining the community." On day 3, she recruited 2 HOA members to observe. They stood there looking embarrassed while she pointed out random things like, "The wood is too new." "The dock is too straight." "Your hammering is too loud." Mark didn't stop. Not once. Work continued without fear, without hesitation. Soon, neighbors started watching too, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Some walked their dogs near the lake just to see the progress. Some stood quietly with coffee cups, whispering things like, "He's really doing it. Karen must be losing her mind." I've lived here 10 years, no one has ever challenged her. Word spread fast. So fast that the dock became the most exciting thing happening in the whole community. Even kids came by after school, sitting on the grass and asking 1,000 questions. Can we fish here when it's done? Is Karen going to explode? Can we jump off the end? Mark always laughed. We'll see, he'd say. One step at a time. After a week of work, the dock was almost finished. Long, sturdy wooden boards stretched out over the water. Sunlight reflected beautifully on the new surface. It wasn't fancy, but it was strong, simple, and built with care. It was perfect. Tom came over the morning before the final step. Man, he said, whistling, you built this fast. Karen must be preparing a meltdown. Mark smirked. She already had 3. Tom laughed so hard he nearly dropped the box of lemonade he brought. Well, get ready for number 4. But Mark wasn't worried. He'd followed every rule. Every code. Every requirement. There was nothing Karen could do. Nothing legal, at least. The next day, Mark added the final beam, screwed in the last bolt, and stepped back to admire the result. A strong dock stretching into the calm water. A place to sit, fish, relax, or simply breathe. It wasn't just a structure. It was a statement. Karen did not own the lake. She never had. And everyone could see that now. Tom clapped. This is amazing, man. Everyone in the neighborhood is going to love it. Mark smiled. Then let's open it. Tom blinked. Open it? Yeah, Mark said. It's a public lake. Let the public enjoy it. Tom grinned. Oh boy. Karen is going to. But before he finished, a loud scream echoed from the street. No! Karen! She stormed down the hill, her sunglasses crooked, her hair slightly falling out of her bun. She looked like she had run a marathon fueled by pure rage. What? Did you do? She shrieked, staring at the completed dock like it was a crime scene. Mark stayed calm. I built a dock. Karen pointed at it as if it was a monster. You can't just this is a violation of everything. Everything. County approved, Mark replied, holding up a copy of the permit. Karen snatched it, scanned it, and her face turned pale. No, she whispered. This can't be right. This isn't real. You tricked someone. It's legal, Mark said simply. No, she screamed again. This dock will attract people. Noise. Disorder. Boats. Kids. You are destroying the community. Tom stepped forward. Karen, relax. It's a dock, not a nuclear bomb. Karen turned on him like a dragon ready to breathe fire. You stay out of this, Tom. But Tom didn't back down. No. We're tired of your rules, Karen. Everyone is. Karen froze. She turned around slowly, realizing many neighbors had gathered behind her. Some had phones recording. Some had arms crossed. Some simply stared. The community was watching. And not one person stood with her. A tremble ran through her. You're all betraying me, she said softly, her voice breaking. Mark stepped onto the new dock. He turned around and faced the crowd. Everyone, he said calmly, the dock is open. Anyone can use it. The lake belongs to all of us. The neighbors smiled. Kids cheered. Someone clapped. Karen looked like she had been struck. You can't do this, she whispered. I already did, Mark replied. He took a fishing rod, sat at the edge of the new dock, and dipped the line into the water. He didn't need to say more. The message was clear. Karen didn't own the lake anymore. She never did. And now, everyone knew it. Tom sat beside him. Neighbors walked onto the dock. Kids ran to the edge and dipped their toes in the water. It felt like freedom. Karen stood alone at the shoreline, shaking with anger. But this was only the beginning. Because what Mark was planning next would break her completely. For the first time in a long while, the neighborhood felt alive. Kids laughed on the dock. Parents sat on lawn chairs taking photos. Even the old couple from house number 14, who rarely left their porch, wandered down to admire the new view. The dock wasn't just wood and nails anymore. It was a gathering place. A symbol of freedom. A tiny rebellion against the iron rule of one woman. And that woman was currently hiding. After her dramatic meltdown the day the dock opened, Karen vanished for nearly 2 days. No yelling. No threats. No clipboard. No banging on doors. People whispered theories while they enjoyed the lake. Maybe she went on vacation? Maybe she fainted and she's recovering? Maybe she's plotting something big? Tom joked, maybe she's dissolving in a pot like the Wicked Witch. Mark smirked. She's planning. Trust me. Because Karen never stayed quiet unless she was recharging her fury. On the third morning, Mark woke with a new idea, simple, funny, and perfectly legal. He brewed coffee, grabbed his laptop, and created a small invoice. Not a big one. Just a little something that would either teach Karen a lesson or make her explode like a shaken soda bottle. Invoice number 001. From Mark Sanders. To Lakeshore HOA. Service, public dock, construction and community use. Usage fee, $1,200 per month. Notes, fee applies due to HOA members' regular presence on dock property. Due date, immediate. He smiled. Then printed 5 copies. Tom reacted the way Tom always reacted, dramatically. You're billing the HOA, he shouted, nearly spilling his second breakfast burrito. Mark nodded calmly. Karen spent weeks telling me what I can't do. Now she'll hear what she has to do. Tom laughed so hard he wheezed. This is going to start a war. It already started, Mark said. Now I'm just charging rent. They didn't hand the invoice to Karen directly. That would be too simple. Too expected. Instead, Mark placed 1 copy in the HOA mailbox. 1 under the office door. 1 on the official HOA community board. And then, for good measure, 1 on the lake's notice pole right at eye level where Karen usually posted her violation warnings. Now everyone could see it. By noon, the neighborhood was buzzing louder than a beehive. Is this real? He's charging them now? Oh, Karen's gonna combust. Someone even took a selfie next to the invoice. Karen appeared at exactly 2:14 p.m. She stormed across the grass like a hurricane wearing expensive sunglasses. Her shoes kicked up dirt. Her face was red. Her breathing was loud enough for birds to scatter. Mark watched her approach from the dock bench. He didn't move. She marched straight to him and waved the paper in his face. What is this? She hissed. A bill, Mark answered casually. For usage. Karen's voice cracked. Usage? What usage? You and your HOA team come down here every day, Mark explained calmly. You inspect. You walk on it. You talk on it. You take pictures. You monitor the community from it. That's usage. This is illegal, she shouted. No, Mark said, still relaxed. This is America. Tom choked on his drink. Say it again, brother. Karen trembled. You cannot charge the HOA. I run the HOA. Exactly, Mark said. So I'm charging you. She gasped like oxygen had betrayed her. You can't charge me. I'm not, Mark said. I'm charging the HOA. You're just their leader. So the bill goes to whoever's in charge. A neighbor called from behind. So? Karen. People laughed. Karen didn't. Her jaw tightened so much it looked like she might bite through her sunglasses. "You are mocking me," she said in a low, shaky voice. "No," Mark answered. "I'm following the rules, your favorite thing." She tried to regain control. "Even if this ridiculous invoice were real, which it isn't, why would we ever pay you?" "Oh, you don't have to pay," Mark said. Karen blinked. "What?" "You can decline," he continued. "And if the HOA declines to pay, I will simply limit HOA access to the dock." Karen froze. You'll what?" she whispered. "No HOA member will be allowed to stand, walk, or conduct activities on the dock," Mark clarified. "Unless the usage fee is covered." Karen's eyes widened in horror. "You mean I can't come down here?" "Me?" Mark shrugged. "If the HOA wants free access, someone has to approve the payment." The entire neighborhood watched the showdown like it was the season finale of a drama show. Karen turned slowly toward the crowd. They weren't on her side. Not this time. Not after years of her rules, letters, fines, and threats. She was alone. Completely alone. "This is not over," she screamed suddenly, her voice echoing over the water. "I know," Mark said softly. Karen stomped away, muttering to herself. Tom sat beside Mark again. "Dude. You just shook the kingdom." Mark smiled and watched the water ripple under the dock. "She wanted power," he said quietly. "Now she'll see what it feels like when someone pushes back." Tom stretched. "You think she'll pay?" "No," Mark said. "She'll do something bigger." "And dumber?" "Much dumber." A breeze moved across the lake. A peaceful moment. But Mark knew peace never lasted long with Karen around. Whatever she planned next would probably be her most desperate move yet. And he was ready. For 2 days after receiving the invoice, Karen disappeared again. No morning patrol. No shouting. No clipboard tapping against doors. The lake was calm, but Mark knew better. Silence was never a good sign with someone like Karen. Silence meant planning. Plotting. Sharpening her weapons of drama. And on the third morning, the storm arrived. It started with a loud message buzzing through every phone in the neighborhood. A new HOA alert. Emergency meeting today, mandatory attendance. Topic: the illegal dock. Mark laughed so hard he nearly spilled his coffee. Tom burst through Mark's back door. "Bro! She just declared war in all caps," he shouted. She even added 3 fire emojis. Mark shook his head. "Let's go see what she has this time." The meeting took place in the community park under the big gazebo. Karen had set up a plastic table with microphones, a speaker she didn't know how to use, and a pile of papers she kept slamming around for dramatic effect. About 40 neighbors showed up. Some were curious. Some were nervous. And some came only for entertainment and snacks. The moment Mark arrived, Karen's eyes locked onto him like a security camera detecting a threat. "He is here," she whispered loudly, pointing at him like he was a criminal entering court. Mark sat calmly in the front row. Tom sat beside him with popcorn. Karen stepped to the microphone. It squealed. She screamed. The mic screamed back. Everyone winced. Finally, after a painful minute of noise, she began. "Neighbors," she said with a shaky voice full of anger and forced authority. "We are here today because one man has attacked our community." Murmurs spread. Tom whispered, "Oh wow, she's going full superhero villain mode." Karen continued, waving a paper above her head. "This is what he sent us. This ridiculous, fake, illegal invoice. He is trying to extort the HOA." A few people snorted. She pointed directly at Mark. "And he threatens to ban all HOA members from using the lake area unless we pay him." Mark calmly raised a hand. "That's not exactly. You will speak when I allow you." Karen screamed. The crowd gasped. Someone muttered, "She's losing it." Karen inhaled sharply. Now listen carefully. Mark broke several rules that protect our lake. A woman in the back stood up. Karen, the lake is public. No, it is not. Karen yelled. An older man held up his phone. It says right here, from the city website, the lake is 100% public. Several people nodded. Karen stomped her foot. That website is wrong. The crowd groaned. Karen slammed a binder on the table. So today, I propose a new rule. The dock must be removed immediately. And if Mark refuses, he will be fined every day until it is gone. She smiled triumphantly, as if she had delivered a powerful speech. But the neighborhood wasn't impressed. A woman raised her hand. Karen, we like the dock. A dad spoke next. My kids finally have a safe place to fish. An elderly man added, that dock is the best thing we've had in years. More voices joined in. It actually increased property values. It brings people together. He followed the law. Stop making problems, Karen. Karen's eyes twitched. Her hands shook. She wasn't used to opposition, not like this. This is my community, she said quietly, dangerously. No, Mark said calmly. It's our community. The crowd nodded. Karen snapped. She slammed her fist on the table so hard her water bottle flew into the grass. You all are blind, she screamed. He is destroying everything. And you're letting him. Mark stood now, but he kept his tone gentle. Karen, the lake is public. The dock is legal. The invoice was a simple reminder that you don't control everything. You can't fine people for existing. You can't create rules out of fear. Karen shook her head wildly. You don't understand. Without MY rules, this place will fall apart. People will park wrong. Kids will run. Dogs will bark. Nothing will be normal. Tom whispered, this is better than Netflix. Karen suddenly grabbed a stack of papers, new rule proposals, and sprinted toward the lake. Everyone followed, confused. She stood in front of the dock, waving the papers like weapons. If the HOA won't stop him, I will, she shouted. She marched onto the dock, still yelling, until she tripped over one of her own rule binders that had slipped from her hands. The binder skidded forward. Karen skidded after it. And then, splash! She fell into the lake. A huge, dramatic, slow-motion fall that made everyone gasp. Tom dropped his popcorn. Oh my, she fell into democracy. Mark rushed forward automatically, helping her to the edge. Karen sputtered, hair dripping, sunglasses floating away like lost dreams. She shouted, "Don't touch me." Mark backed up. Neighbors tried not to laugh. Someone whispered, the lake finally rejected her. Karen flung the wet papers toward the dock, but they floated around her like sad little islands. The moment she climbed out, dripping and furious, she screamed. This isn't over. The HOA will fight this. But the HOA president, Mr. Howard, usually soft-spoken and timid, finally spoke up. No, Karen, he said. This is over. You're removed as HOA leader. Effective immediately. The entire crowd gasped. Then, cheered. Karen froze. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. But no words came out. Finally, she stormed off, soaked, defeated, and humiliated. Mark stood beside the dock, watching her go. The lake rippled behind him, calm and bright in the sunlight. Tom slapped Mark's shoulder. You did it, man. Mark shook his head. No, we all did. The neighborhood gathered, smiling, relieved. The dock stood strong. The lake was free. And Karen, well, she wouldn't be back anytime soon. Maybe the lake wasn't theirs. But now it finally belonged to the people who loved it.